Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take on a Shimano. This one is the SLX and then the MGL designation at 70. I'm not sure what all of that stands for, but we're going to find out. This one comes from the glorious state of Washington, and I was just asked to tune this up. So let's get started. We'll get started by removing the external pieces and parts. And when I do that, I like to thank our first responders and essential personnel for all of the things they're doing to keep us safe during the pandemic. You know, the pandemic is winding down a little bit, but the consequences of this disease have not stopped or abated at all. I just was reading a story in today's paper about one of the first responders, a nurse, who unfortunately contracted the virus while servicing her patients in the hospital. She got it, and 5 months later, she's, I guess, being known as a, I forget the term, but for whatever reason, she still is fatigued, still has the symptoms of no taste and no smell, and life hasn't returned to normal for her. And that's kind of what everybody in the healthcare professions is putting on the line every day, the risk that they may just contact this disease, and they're willing to do that to keep us safe. So thank you all for everything it is that you do and for the sacrifices that you make. All right, we removed the nut cap, then we removed the nut, and the nut came off in a clockwise manner. It's a reverse thread, if you will. Normally they would come off in a counterclockwise. It's a good place to tell you to take pictures along the way now, because even though they've included the schematic in the box, you just want the visual reminders of where you are and how you approach the reel and the sequence that you took these off in, so that when you go to reinstall, it goes easier on you. And if you get stuck, you can always go back to the pictures. So I noticed that there was a little circular washer kind of a thing in there underneath the handle. Then there's a spring-loaded handle. And here's that annoying little click rod rocket that they have. I was waiting for that to fall out. And then the spring. And that leads us to the adjuster nut underneath. And I keep forgetting this is a reverse thread. So you have a spring, then you have this. And then we have a couple of shim washers underneath. So I like to kind of just stack them. Notice that there's a kind of a brass colored one, and then there's the two that are kind of bell washers. They're not flat washers. And then that takes care of this side of the reel. So now we have 1, 2 side plate screws there, 2 more on the back side. And I'm going to use a micro screwdriver for this. I think that's the best way to do that. And then we'll see if we're hiding one underneath the spool there. Shimano does its best to hide screws, so we may or may not have that as an issue here. There's 2 of them there, and they're different sizes, so that's what I like to do here. So notice that the longer one came out of this side plate and the shorter one came to the front. And then we have 2 on the front side here. And you need to keep different screwdrivers. Some are easier to get with one or another. I don't know why that is. I can't imagine that the person who's putting this reel together has to change the tool that they're using. All right, now this one's got a different thread than that. So these are the points that you want to take a reference to, so that when you go to reinstall, you don't put the screws in the wrong place and then have an issue when you go to reinstall. So those 2 appear to be the same. I'm going to put those into my parts tray, which is where I've been storing the other pieces. It's just the bottom of a jug. But I put all my small pieces and parts in there. And then when it comes to things like the side plate screws, I do like to segregate them based on where they were in the position of the reel. We should be able to take off the case now. We are. Look at that big main gear. I don't know what the ratio is on this, but that is one big main gear to one small pinion gear. Notice I'm going to take the springs out right now. And that's going to result in a crazy high ratio. I don't know if it was stamped on here. Yeah, 7.2 to 1. That makes all the sense in the world. That's just a huge reel. This one's just in for the basic service, so we're going to just take the main gear off and make sure it's clean underneath, which it is. I just got that one click spring, and that's got to go in with that little, what I call the rocket. All right, we're just going to clean it up, and then we can remove this as well. This is your pinion gear and yoke. So we'll take the click ratchet, we'll clean that up. I'm going to use a paper towel just to wipe off the excess grease. And we can just go ahead and put that back on. There's nothing to clean in the case. The case is very clean. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for that, so let's just leave that off to the side for a moment. I'm going to clean out the yoke carrier. There's no grease on this. That's probably why it came in, because there is no grease on any of this. And it was making a little bit of noise when it came in, so it's probably just that it's that old squeaky wheel syndrome. Okay, that's the setup for this. I have that backwards. This the slotted side goes towards the spool, which we'll get to in a little bit. You'll also notice that there's a ramp on the back of this. Probably shouldn't have put it on without pointing that out, but you'll see that there's a ramp. It's an angular piece that intersects with the angle that's on this case, and that's how it pulls the piece in and out when you go to do the free spool release. All right, that's back on. Now I can put this piece in. I typically get in trouble with that. That's the kick, if you will. This piece here, this square, is going to intersect with this when you go to free spool release, and then it's going to pop it back out. All right, we took that off the bottom. These are carbon tex. You don't need to do anything with them. They have a little bit of oil on them. We're going to leave it just like that. Then we'll open up the inside here, make sure everything is good there. Yeah, so these are basically in new condition. Nothing needs to be done there. You can check the main gear. I don't expect to find anything that's out of round, bent, or the like. I'm just going to make sure that it gets a nice coating of grease as well. You don't have to get grease in every slot and every tooth. It'll only work its way out, but you do need to get a good amount of grease on when you're doing your basic service. And we'll go ahead and reinstall this, mesh that with the pinion gear. We're going to clean up the back side of this. There's only one washer in here for a drag washer. So we'll clean that up. Notice this has got a little bit of a bell. That bell side goes out. Just like that. And then we have this ferrule that rides inside the anti-reverse gear, so I will clean that off and make sure that those two legs intersect with the slots in the main gear. And all we need to do left on this, put a little bit of, I just want to get it. Yeah, this reel is bone dry, so I'm going to just put a little bit of oil onto where that is going to ride, and a little bit onto the carrier piece there. Two screws can come back, screws, I always call the springs screws for some reason. The two springs can come back on, and we can just close this case up and go to the other side. You don't want to oil your instant anti-reverse. That's a friction-driven piece, and if you introduce oil, you're going to get it to slip, and that's exactly opposite what you want to do. All right, we come back to reassemble this case then, and that has the two fine threaded screws, and that was going in with a different screwdriver, so we'll get those in, and I'm kind of putting them back in reverse order the way I took them out. You remember I took the two from the back out first. It doesn't matter which sequence you put them back in. I'm just, when I go to reinstall, I like to make sure that I kind of get it the full way. All right, that takes care of this side. We'll go over to the back side and put those other two in. Remember, we had a short and a long. If you took the pictures, you know that the short one belongs in the back side here, and the long one belongs up front there. Actually, this is the front of the reel. So, other than from an orientation standpoint, getting it wrong. Alrighty, get that one in. Let's just go service the spool now. So this side here has a little mag adjuster, I'm guessing. That's probably what the MG stands for. There's an open and a close switch. Move that switch to the open side. That'll bring that out and over. And you can remove the spool. And just make sure it's clean. It is. Like I said, this reel's been very dry here. There's nothing going on there. But on this back side here, you will have a bearing. Hard to see. It's a bearing here. You want to oil that bearing. I'm using an aftermarket oil. It's called Reelex. It's a synthetic. And I was just checking to see if there was a spool bearing in here. There's not. Typically there would be a spool bearing on that side, but it isn't. And kudos to the reel owner. They did back this up with some monofilament before they put the braid on. Always a good idea to do that as well. All right, we can just reinstall then. We've got that bearing done there. And then if you pull that in, it's going to be kind of mounted, and just come on back and close that. There we go. I just want to make sure we get that locked in all the way. And then the last piece here then is just to remove this pawl cover. I'm going to see if we can't work that over. You want to remove the pawl cover and just make sure that you get some oil into the pawl carrier. So if you like this kind of thing, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel. And if you subscribe, please hit the notification button. That way it'll tell you when I post my videos. And you can make a choice as to whether that's a video you want to see. And simply click on it by watching it from that notifications page. If you have questions on this reel or any reel in particular, and maybe you're stuck on a reel and you don't know how to service it, or I had a question before, came in on one of the reels that a fellow had looked at my video on and took a look and said, geez, my reel doesn't look like yours, what's going on? And we took a look and found out that he had a broken part in there. So those are the kinds of things that I will welcome a question on if you have one. And if you do, I will try to answer it for you. Okay, so next up then, we've got, I believe there's going to be a bearing hiding in here. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure there will be. There is, so let's oil that one. And then we can go reinstall. So if you like the video, please indicate that with a like on your screen. And that will give me an indication of whether I'm doing this right or not. Alright, there's those two flex washers or belt washers. They're going to provide tension for that star adjuster. There's the regular cap, and we have this one. It's going to house the spring. Remember that this is a reverse thread, so you're going to put this on by turning it counterclockwise as opposed to clockwise. The next up is that spring. Then we have this little guy. This is where that we have the flat washer here. There's a series of ridges on that. You want to pay attention to that, because this next thing is the most annoying thing that Shimano's ever come up with. And it's got a little spring mount. You can probably hardly see that. It's easy to lose it. And what I call the rocket. A little rocket goes inside that spring, and it goes in that little indentation there as it becomes a click ratchet for you. So it's kind of a funky little design there. So let's and then this sits over it like that. When you go to adjust your star drag, it tells you that it's operating that way. Okay, I'm just going to lay that down here for a moment. This one comes up next. So you want to get it so that you've got it on the square now. And you put that little spring in the hole. And then this little guy, there's just not enough small hands on this wonderful planet of ours to ever get this right. So I'm just looking for a kind of a pliers to help me out here. So you can kind of see how it's nestled in there. Hopefully you can see it. There's a spring and then that little rocket. And then this has got multiple little grooves in it, so you want to put that face down so that the click happens. Next up then would be the handle. You're trying to keep pressure on that star adjuster the whole way. Remember, that's kind of holding it all in there. And then we have our nut cap that's reversed. So again, tighten it in a counterclockwise manner, which is usually the way you take things off. Make sure it's nice and tight there. And then you just want to line up now so that your nut cap is centered over the hole. It's not. I have to turn that a little bit more. It's just a little game you have to play. There you go. Now we're centered on that hole. We have the tie down screw that we started with, and we're basically done with this service. So if you have this reel, you kind of know a little bit about it. Very high speed reel. I didn't count a lot of ball bearings going on here, right? Some of these other reels have got a lot more ball bearings in them. I think sometimes the engineers are just challenged to find out how many ball bearings they can pack in a reel. In this case, we didn't have that many, but we've got a nice little over tightened here. Nice little spinner. We'll make sure that our free spool is working, which it is, and make sure it clicks, and it's ready to go. So there you have it. That's the Shimano MGL. It's the 71 HG, and it's a nice little reel. So we'll get this one out there fishing again. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day. Please stay safe, stay well, stay listening, stay watching, listen to the authorities, wear your masks, even though some of the mask mandates are starting to go away. Say thank you to a healthcare provider, an EMT, a fire, or law enforcement, or the like. Remember that little story I told you about the nurse here? That's real time, and that's the risks and jeopardies they run every day. And we really do owe our lives to these folks. So thanks again. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.